You're listening to Second Cut. This is the podcast from thefilmmagazine.com where we talk about movies, movie topics. That's the new intro. And film theory, criticism, history, whatever else I say. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who didn't get love and hate tattooed on his knuckles.
I'm Sam, and I can't quite get the angle right. Would you like to tell me the story of the right hand, left hands?
I should have gotten the brass knuckles. That's what should have happened, I guess.
One thing I discovered while doing this, it's a lot harder to do the right hand if you're right-handed. It doesn't really show up.
Yeah, no, I can imagine.
On your skin.
Wait, did you actually tattoo it, Sam?
No, I'm not that committed to this podcast.
Oh. Or to film in general, I guess.
No.
Okay. Yeah, we watched Night of the Hunter. I was going to do another movie, but I didn't because this movie's good.
Yeah, Jacob tapped out of his movie, so yeah, we're redoubling our efforts to something that's actually good.
Yes. Or re-singling, depending on it. We're having them.
Sure.
Whichever way. But, yeah, we watched Night of the Hunter. We don't have any questions about Night of the Hunter. Or about whatever the topic was going to be in general, but
it was going to be actors turned directors because there've been a fair few of them over the years, and famously Charles Lawson only did the one film as director, and a lot of people have tried to theorize why. So it might be quite interesting to get into the film itself and try and piece it all together.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, this is a classic. Like, this is the kind of movie that directors love this movie. And it's also kind of the early cult classic, wasn't it, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't very well received at the time on its release. But as often is the case, the French critics were ahead of the curve. That they loved it. They voted it as a couple of times as up there with films like Citizen Kane. But yeah, American critics really did not see what the fuss was about, and reportedly kind of put Martin off directing further films. Although I think he later on said it was more that he wanted to get back to the theatre. Really, he wasn't real. He'd had enough of the movie business.
Yes. Then. Yeah, I podcast because I've had enough with the writing. Yeah, that's it. Let's see. I did pull up some of the contemporary reviews, and people just seem really confused by it. And the New York Times person, they said at the end, it just turns into an allegory for good and evil. And I would like them to describe what most movies are. Like, as if a film being allegorical is a negative? I was confused by the criticism.
Yeah. You think about Benioff from Weiss's now infamous quote about themes being for sixth grade book reports. It's like I object to being challenged on an intellectual level. I mean, the Variety review they said. It's rich in promise, but the completed product's bewitching at times, loses sustained drive via too many offbeat touches that have a misty effect.
Yeah, people liked that word misty and foggy.
Yeah, I mean, it's appropriate for the visuals and everything, but yeah, I think the slight elusiveness of it all is part of the strength, the strength of the film, really.
Yeah, and the Harrison's report, their review of it. This is July 23rd, 1955. They wrote that the editing was choppy. They called the editing... I'm so confused about that critique.
I mean, one thing... I wouldn't quite... That's one thing I probably wouldn't quite disagree with. I think you can tell there are some scenes that have either... They've had to cut short for reasons, maybe like a flubbed line or, something going wrong on set or something. So there is a sudden kind of change in a few of the scenes. I did notice that this time around, but not to the detriment of the whole film, though. It's just, that's a bit sudden. We're on to the next scene. Okay, but...
Well, and, I don't want to steal any fun facts from you, Sam, because this was technically your movie. But one thing that I found in reading about this was that They never cut. They just ran the film the whole time, and Lawton would just go in
Yeah,
front of the reel and
yeah,
give directions. So,
yeah, yeah,
if anything, it's
yeah,
probably to the film's benefit that the editing is,
yeah, yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stitched together that way.
Yeah. I mean, that gave them plenty of outtakes, especially with the kids, because famously you can't really direct kids very well. Very few people can. I think Charles Lawson had a bit of a problem with that. I think he possibly relies on Rob Mitchum, to kind of engage with them on their level a bit better. He's a lot more patient with the kids apparently. But I suppose his cameras are always running, and it kind of captured a few like reactions when they weren't kind of didn't know they'd been filmed, and he could obviously add those in later on, to as reactions, to stuff that happens later.
Well, it is also funny how many, like, kid movies or adult movies don't star kids, and like
Yeah.
this is one of the few I could think of, and I was honestly impressed by the child actors who didn't really
Yeah.
go on to act anymore beyond childhood.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Robert Mitchum and Shea Winters are the names above the title card, but it's the kids' film, really, isn't it? I mean, in terms of screen time, I think they're actually on screen far more than any of the adult characters. And obviously, it's their struggle, it's their journey. They're kind of they've got to grow up real fast, and go on like an odyssey, by the end of it.
Yeah, and we're talking about, I mean, the way that it puts you into the view of a child. One thing that the art director, set design, it's very minimalist, and it's meant to only have
Yeah,
very specific shapes and things to sort of
yeah,
mimic childhood memory. I
mm,
guess this does sort of take place from a future perspective. I mean, if it's shot in the
yeah.
past, everything's happening contemporaneously, but I could see it as like John's memory of this event or something.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a 50s movie, obviously set in the 30s, but it's kind of the style of it is harking back kind of further in like in the American film industry, and beyond, So it doesn't look like the other movies of the mid 50s, It looks like a classic film noir, or even like a German expressionist kind of thing generally. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
in the Stanley Cortez, the cinematographer, he also works with. Also worked with Orson Welles on a few projects, and he talks about like his influence from like German expressionism, especially, and how it experiments with like the new Tri-X film stock and using natural light, to get like really deep black shadows and like that really high contrast. I mean, there's a few famous shots, like the bedroom scene, where Harry Powell, commits one of his atrocities, and it's just the shafts of light coming through the window, and just how everything's illuminated, and everything's kind of darkened. It's incredible to look at.
yeah, Robert Mitchum said this was his favorite film role,
Mm,
and I
yeah,
mean, yeah, it's the kids' movie, but this is Robert
yeah,
Mitchum's movie.
yeah. And famously, he didn't really like to wax lyrical about anything. He was very kind of he's almost like a Harrison Ford before his time. He didn't really get enthusiastic about stuff. He just turned up, did his job. Didn't really think he was very good, but he just wanted to turn up, get paid, and then go home and have a drink.
Also antagonized like all kinds of actors. Robert De
Yeah,
Niro, in
yeah,
some 70s movie, I forget which one,
yeah,
and John Wayne, he would make fun of him for wearing lifts and getting his
yeah.
like car adjusted for his big hat.
Yeah, I mean, I think famously, when a journalist was kind of trying to talk about, how great it was, how influential it was, he just dismissed it offhand, and he kind of described his performance as, "Look, I've got two modes of acting: on a horse and off a horse."
Also, one of the horse shots in this movie is a little person
Yes,
riding a mini horse.
I know. I don't understand why he did that. 'Cause John Richard famously was quite good with horses. He was in a lot of westerns. It's like, why did they need to do that?
Oh, I don't know, but that it's such a bizarre fact. I love it. But yeah, Robert Mitchum is incredible in this.
Yeah,
You don't have this movie without Robert Mitchum.
no,
The list of names that Lawton tried to get in obviously were insane. Gary
Yeah.
Cooper. Do you remember who else?
No, Gary Cooper was the one I thought of, but he didn't want it. He thought it would tarnish his kind of good guy kind of reputation, you know. Whereas Rob
Probably would
Mitchum just
have.
didn't care. Rob Mitchum just didn't care. He read the script, thought, "Yeah, I like this. I want to do this."
Yeah. By the way, I'm pretty sure he read that 293-page whopper of a first draft first. He was talking
Yeah,
in a radio interview about how he wrote the writer wrote an 18-pound script, and then Lawton fixed it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think that screenwriter was particularly experienced at adapting, you know, for screen. I mean, I think it sounds like he almost like transcribed the novel, just wrote stage directions in it.
Yeah, and
But but I mean, he is kind of, yeah, he is incredible in the role, and he's a fascinating character. I mean, loosely based on a real guy, you know, a real serial killer who was again like this, like Harry Powell masquerading as a preacher and traveling around, I mean, he's fascinating character because he's a complete hypocrite, isn't he? You know, he kind of he's basically saying, you know, God is telling me to do this, you know, and I'm ridding the world of sinners and stuff, but can't really get much bigger sin than brutally murdering multiple women, can you?
yeah, no, I mean, a lot of them for money. I mean, I guess during the
Yeah,
Great Depression, it's a good way to make money,
yeah.
but
I mean,
kind
the
of like The
first time
Sims.
yeah, I mean, the first time we see him, you know, he's driving along, like talking to the clouds, you know, like he's talking to God, and he's talking about the things, you know, the sins God doesn't like, and talks about it. He's basically, yeah, he kind of basically states out loud he's on a mission from God to kill perfume smelling things, lacy things with curly hair.
Yeah, yeah. Then he goes to the cabaret show and gets arrested for car thieving.
Yeah,
And I do
yeah,
like
yeah,
all of the kind of down home way that he
yeah.
talks. Uh,
I like the symbolism in that. I mean, it's funny for a film that's mid-50s. It's quite a horny movie, really. There's definitely some subtext here. I mean, just like how the switchblade kind of pops in his pocket while he's watching what's happening on stage. You know, it's almost like it's like yeah, it's definitely standing in for something there, I think.
yeah. But also on the symbolism front, this was
Yeah,
still governed under the production code. So
yeah,
whenever he gets shot in the face, there is a shot, there is a yell. There
mm,
isn't really any violence shown. It's all very implied. All of the dark stuff is implied.
yeah,
We'll get to Shelley Winters later, but her death
yeah.
implied.
Yeah, it's weird that her death's implied, but we can have a lingering shot on her corpse.
Oh yes, which is the best. Like, there's so many good shots. That is the best.
Yeah,
And they used a dummy that looked a lot like Shelley Winters, and
mm,
unfortunately, Robert Mitchum said that he wished it was Winters.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he basically, yeah, he locked horns with a lot of people. He wasn't a nice guy, you know, great actor, but not a nice guy. And yeah, he says some horrible things about most people in this film, but especially Shelley Winters. Yeah.
Yeah, but on that front, I didn't know Shelley Winters roomed with Marilyn Monroe when they were getting into acting. It's a
No.
fun. She taught her how to be sexy by putting her head back, apparently. But yeah, Shelley Winters is playing the unfortunate mother of these two children, whose husband is hanged for robbing a bank, which was
Mm.
the pastime of many a person during the Great Depression, um, or
Yeah,
more than
yeah,
usual.
yeah. I mean, we've actually seen like running into his yard, you know, with this pile of cash, you know, and he tells his kids, you know, to hide it and to swear to never tell, and that's kind of where it all kicks off. 'Cause at the same time, Harry Powell is arrested and tried not for murder but for stealing a car, so lesser of crimes, and he happens to wouldn't know share a cell with the dad of these kids.
At first, I didn't realize it was the Great Depression, so I thought, why does this guy in the
Yeah,
1950s have a Model T? Um, but it's because
yeah,
it's the 30s. And then also for Shelley Winters, she's playing a very similar role to Lolita, where a
Yeah, yeah. Her characters don't have a good history of picking their men, do they?
no, or of being alive. Really, she dies in a lot of movies.
Hmm.
She was the
Ha- ha-
Sean
ha-
Bean of her day.
Yeah, yeah. She ever got like more than halfway through a movie?
But she is really good. Like
Yeah,
she has just a vulnerability to her that I really appreciate. She seems honest as this just poor woman who wants
yeah,
to feel better about the things that she has experienced in her life. I think
yeah,
her role could have been expanded, but I'm sure that's a
yeah,
source material issue.
yeah. I mean, I think in less hands, she would just be played as like just a victim, and just But I think she is given a bit more depth than that. She makes some bad choices, sure, but she's in a real bind of a position, trying to raise these two kids on her own. The local woman keeps telling her, "Oh, you can't do that on your own. God meant for it to be a two-person job."
Yeah. By the way, the lady telling her that, her name is Icy Spoons, and that is one of the silliest names
isn't
maybe
the isn't
ever.
the hu- isn't the husband Icy Spoons?
No,
She's
he's
Mrs.
Walt
Spoons.
Spoons.
Oh, is he? Oh, right. So it's Icy's right. Okay, got
Yeah.
it. I,
So
I mean, she's got one of those lines. I'm sure they've just put in there just see if they get away with it. Like as you said, in the era of of the production codes. There's a scene where they're having like a picnic on the riverbank, and she's trying to persuade Sherwin's, to go and speak to Harry, and say he'll be a perfect man for you. He's obviously here for a reason. But she has this like offhand comment about being married for 40 years and talking like being into it with her husband, and she just says, "I just lie back and think of my canning."
yeah. Oh, poor Walt. Um, I mean, I guess she is an icy queen. That icy.
Yeah,
I think Shelley Winters, kind of two best scenes are if they're not back to back, they're near back to back, where she has the honeymoon night with her husband,
yeah,
where he
yeah.
scolds her for trying to have sex with him, which production code stuff. It's very mild.
I know,
uh,
yeah, yeah. She might as well just. She comes in. She's wearing a night dress, and she hasn't even got to bed, and it straight away just says, "Nope, it's not happening."
yeah, trying to put your paws on me. Because he always speaks in like very biblical sort of terms.
Yeah,
Robert Mitch or Harry Powell, which is way too close to Harry Potter. It kept bothering me. But yeah, there's a moment in that scene where he berates her, and she just has the saddest look on her face. I saw her make that in Lolita in a similar situation, but man, she nails that. Like it's tough to have that, you know. I don't know. It's sort of feeling that she is exuding of like sadness and embarrassment and shame, kind of all together. Because his excuse is sex is for having kids. Are we having kids? No. Then
mm,
sleep in your
yeah,
twin bed next to mine or what. I think they just
yeah,
had the one bed at least. But then also the tent revival scene where she gets to go really over the top and yell about how she was a sinner and caused her husband to sin. And I mean, I don't know how intentional it was, but in there is feminist critique of religion and the way society has sort of placed women into vulnerable positions. I'm sure there is some um,
mm,
critique in there that is intentional, but it's hard to tell.
yeah. I mean, Charles Lawson was uh,
And
uh,
but I mean on the behalf of the novelist mainly, not so
yeah,
much.
yeah. I mean, I'm not really familiar with the novel. I don't know how they changed it, but I wouldn't be surprised on Charles Lawson's part whether he would kind of lean into that a bit more. Um, I mean, it's quite interesting kind of thematic grounds kind of get into because as a gay man who was married, for kind of public appearances, um, it was probably a lot of that stuff that I kind of how you present, you present yourself to society and what's expected of the various gender roles and stuff. So there may be something in there. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, with that, let's talk about Lawton, who was supposed to be a little bit more of the star of the show, but tell us about the actor Charles Lawton.
Well, a British stage actor, born in, I want to say Scarborough, which is North Yorkshire, which is not far from me. It's even close to where Joe lives. So he's from our neck of the woods. And he's a big London stage star when he moved down there for work, and then made his transition to Hollywood. I think his first Hollywood film was The Old Dark House, the Universal Horror by James Whale. Where it's probably the only Hollywood film, not only for him using his real accent, but probably the only Yorkshire accent you're likely to hear in Hollywood films, full stop. So he kind of sweeps into that film like a hurricane, takes charge, this big loudmouth kind of Yorkshire Lando in the middle of with this like kind of old dark house kind of story, and they all hold up for a night in a storm, and creepy things happen to them in the house. We had a few obviously a few like big Hollywood films following that, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Mutiny on Bounty, and Henry VIII films. Is it Six Wives of Henry VIII, I want to say. I'd have to look it up.
I just know he played Henry VIII and won an Academy Award.
Yeah. So I think it's Six Wives of Henry VIII. Yeah, the film's called. But yeah, he was a big star in like the 30s into 40s, and then started taking a few more out there roles, and but eventually kind of gravitated back towards the theatre, but not before deciding to direct a fairly big film in Hollywood, to try his hand at that.
Yeah, and the result was poorly received, as we mentioned. It made little money, and it's unfortunate that we didn't get another film out of him. But one thing, or at least a directed one, I'm sure he acted in something before. He died like 10 years after this, or 8 or something like that. And there was an interview with Robert Mitchum I was listening to where he said, you know what? Why didn't he direct anything after that? And Mitchum said he died. He was like, okay, but like he rephrased it to imply before that, and he just said because he died. But Lawton was, like you said, closeted gay man. That was really interesting to learn. And then his wife kind of went around like hosting film festivals or appearing at them, and she would go on and talk about him on talk shows.
I mean, Elsa Lanchester, famously played the Bride of Frankenstein, and married this other like British expat, most famous for genre films. And it sounds like they had a great life, because their marriage was essentially, for the public, just for their privacy. But it sounds like they had a great time. They were best friends, essentially. They just had a really good time, just living with each other as friends, and they both saw their own romantic partners.
That's something straight people should learn how to do too.
Yeah. But for this kind of relationship to happen in like the 30s, it's quite something, really.
Yeah, but the guy that, oh my gosh, do you remember the name of the actor he was in love with?
I'd have to look it up.
Oh, it's something Power. It's an amazing name, and he also unfortunately died young. But
Charles Lawton, yep. So he.
I'm just talking to fill silent space until Sam finds what he's looking for.
The Henry VIII film is The Private Life of Henry VIII, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Bisexuality.
Bisexuality, blah, 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 blah. Tyrone Power.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Yeah, you saw it for me.
Yes, amazing name. He was Tyrone Power III, but his son is known as Tyrone Power Jr., and so he became senior retro. It's a very strange circumstance. I went down a weird rabbit hole. But Lawton also was, obviously not a filmmaking guy, so he got Cortez. Cortez, I watched an interview with him where he was like, yeah, I went over to his house and like showed him different lenses and what they do and stuff.
Yeah,
But they collaborated really well together, even though, it was ultimately Cortez that was kind of in charge of
yeah,
the lighting
yeah,
and the camera and everything. But he did explain it to him, and also the novelist sat and storyboarded with Lawton. So, I mean, he did have a lot of control over the visuals, just in a more indirect way, working with
yeah.
collaborators.
Yeah, I mean, you often see that with actors turned directors who are interviewed about kind of why they made the change. At the time, a lot of them say, "Oh, it's like I've always wanted this, always been my kind of my chosen routes. My career. I've been learning on the job all these years. I've been on so many sets. But they have others, who get the kind of the technicians and the crafts people, to kind of to advise me. They get talented people around them and get to support their kind of vision. I mean, both ways work. So either you're natural at it and you've taken all that stuff in, or as Lawson always was, he was more interested in the acting side. Coming from that theatre background. So I mean, he still directed. After this, just it was on stage. That was the love. That was the real love of his life. Theatre.
Yeah.
Um,
Referencing, what you said earlier about that, he said, like, I can change everything, but with the film,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
done when it's done. But he
Yeah,
can go night to night, changing lines, changing sets.
yeah. I think in McKellen said something similar about kind of film versus stage acting, and he kind of said, yeah, that's what breaks his heart. He loves playing so many of his like big film roles, but he'll never get to play them again. Whereas theatre, you can play the same role hundreds of times, and bring something new
Was this
out each
before The
time. So,
Hobbit?
yes, I think it was before The Hobbit when he got depressed having to act in a cupboard by himself. Yeah.
It's a good thing he wasn't in the MCU, or they'd have him until he's
Yeah.
90.
Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, Lawton, like, he really showed an appreciation for film, and he went to silent film for the inspiration, like you also mentioned, and you can
Yeah.
really see it in, like, not just the black and white, like just the
Yeah.
emphasis on shape and what's going on in the frame versus, when I think of a 50s movie, I think of a couple in a very standard room with a, kind of sitcom setup at best. And it's just reverse shot, or a static corner shot, and that is it.
Yeah, you could almost play this as like a silent film. You switch off the soundtrack. I mean, obviously you'd miss that great kind of character theme for Powell, which is almost like something from a monster movie. This big do 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 do.
And his other theme is really reminiscent of M too, where he's singing
Yeah,
the
that's
Jesus
true.
song.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's very few kind of films that kind of have made kind of him singing kind of more kind of citizenness. I mean, a lot of people do kind of look to this as like possibly, arguably a horror film. I mean, there's definitely elements of the genre in this, aren't there? I mean, it's definitely a suspense film, obviously, and a thriller. But yes, there's a lot of that genre kind of bleeding into this. Well, I mean, I think Stephen King said that he considers this the scariest film of all time, which is quite interesting.
It really is like it's not a horror film, but like the shot where John and Pearl are in the room and he's telling the story, and then his shadow appears on the wall. Like,
Yeah,
that's a horror movie shot. It's so, like, there are certainly thrilling moments. I'd probably put it more in the thriller area, but
yeah,
like,
yeah. And the point where he changes is almost like the mask slips, because he's usually so kind of controlled and kind of calculating. But then as he's chasing down to the water and they escape on their boat, and he just suddenly goes completely ballistic. It's almost like the monster really comes out, and just bellowing his lungs out.
yeah, just yells in rage.
Yeah,
I really like the scene too where, he has the dinner from Icy, and he says, "Okay, kids, you can have the supper, but first you got to tell me where that money is." And then he calls John a meddler and pulls out the switchblade, and like, he just keeps telling Pearl, "Now this is gonna make me mad." And then finally
yeah,
it
yeah.
does.
Yeah, I
And
mean, outright says to her, when she's kind of just playing it, he says, "Now don't touch my knife. That makes me mad. That
yeah,
makes me very mad."
oh, he plays that, there's something boiling under the surface, but I can keep my
Yeah,
calm. Like, plays
yeah.
it so well. Um, Sam, do you have a favorite scene in this movie?
Ooh, yeah, I've got to think about this a
Well,
bit
you know
really.
what? Let's just we can go sort of ish scene by scene because, I mean, I don't think we fully say the plot.
I mean, I could do a kind of quick summary if it helps. I mean, I describe this as like a perfect example of like a Southern Gothic kind of story. So it's a Depression era West Virginia, um, and a serial killer masquerading as a traveling preacher marries a widow and threatens her children who are hiding their recently executed dad's money, which he got from a bank robbery. Preacher Harry Powell charms and beguiles the local townsfolk, but soon his darker nature takes hold, and as he relentlessly pursues young John and Pearl across the state, and they end up basically taken in by this kindly but quite severe old lady who takes in kind of waifs and strays.
I can't believe I forgot to say Lillian Gish is in
Yeah,
this as the
yeah,
old lady.
she's amazing. And I tell you what, as scary as Mitch and Miss Powell, you would not mess with Lillian Gish, would you? Especially not
No.
when she's coming at you with a shotgun.
But also she has, we see the disciplinarian side and
Yeah,
obviously the
yeah,
shotgun toting side, but there's that scene where Ruby, told the preacher what's going on, and she
mm,
just comforts her and
yeah,
understands that Ruby knows she
yeah,
messed up and she doesn't beat
yeah.
her with a switch.
That is a kind of a weird kind of scene, though, isn't it? Like for all his kind of talk of sin and kind of hating sinners and everything, he almost seems into it in that scene where he takes her to the ice cream parlor and
Oh,
kind of
sure.
flirting with her up to the point where she actually almost offers herself to him, and then he's like, "Get away from me, sinner! Get away from me, harlot!"
I wonder if Scorsese took that for the Jodie Foster scene in Taxi Driver, where she's eating the jelly
Yeah,
on the toast.
yeah. Again, wouldn't surprise me.
No.
Um, I mean, speaking of the Lillian Gish kind of character, it's just the opening to this is possibly the only visual I don't think really works in the film. It's like her telling like a Bible story, and the kids kind of disembodied heads kind of around her. It's just it's a strange kind of effect. I mean, I know it's kind of its time to an extent. It's like kind of how you'd kind of evoke kind of people listening in. If you don't want to show them all in like the same shot, but it's a strange kind of effect and kind of doesn't really marry with the visual style of the rest of the film for me.
In the original script, apparently that was the last shot of the film, but
Uh,
they moved it to the first one instead. But it was weird the first time. The second time, I at least knew what was going on and who these people were, and then I was like, I mean, okay, we have a weird shot in the stars. Whatever, it is what it is.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, I suppose probably the moment from kind of up to point where he murders Willer, and then we see her body underwater. I mean, that's such a it's like probably the two most striking, kind of visually striking, memorable scenes of the film. Him murdering her in that like, or going to murder her in like that shaft of light, high contrast lighting in the bedroom. To a couple of scenes later, seeing her kind of body kind of eerily floating underwater. I mean, my favourite scene probably between those, or maybe the first time he tells the right hand and the left hand kind of story.
yeah,
How it pulls that up. It's almost like you wonder if like the Nolans, writing the script for The Dark Knight, whether they kind of, the Joker telling his scars story, whether it's influenced by that, because it's very quick to pull that one out of his back pocket and kind of embellish it, each time he needs to use it.
well, and speaking of embellishing it, Spike Lee famously just takes the scene and adapts it into Do the Right Thing, where Radio Raheem has the brass knuckles love and hate, but he says like he brings it into the 1980s and he says, yeah, with this left hand Cain iced his brother, and then with the right hand, and then he updates it, he makes it better, but Spike Lee loves this movie. He was on like a TCM presentation for it where he was doing programming for them. So he did like a before and after segment that I watched. He interviewed with AFI about it. He might be on the Criterion release of it. I don't know. But Spike Lee loves this movie. And if something tells you that a movie is good that isn't 2013 Old Boy, it's that Spike Lee is involved or likes it.
Yeah.
I wonder if Spike Lee likes that movie. I need to go read what he said about it.
And another thing to kind of make you know that this is a good movie is that the Legion of Decency gave the film a B because it degraded marriage, and the Protestant Motion Picture Council rated it as objectionable, saying that any religious person would be offended by it. I mean, that is quite an intentional kind of juxtaposition, so like the religious imagery and like the parables and everything, with like some quite heinous kind of acts that human beings can commit on each other.
What is it about 19 or production code era, I'll just say, Americans, that they were too stupid to know that just because he dresses up as a preacher doesn't mean he is a preacher, and that it's not saying anything necessarily about the church or about preachers. And in fact, there's the Lillian Gish reading the Bible verse where she says, beware the false prophets, for they come in sheep's clothing, or whatever that verse is. Like, it spells it out very clearly at the beginning. It's weird to me that Christians were unable to, like, see anything except preacher shown bad guy bad.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of how its reputation's like grown over time, one of the biggest champions of the film was Roger Ebert. I mean, I think he said multiple times that Mitchell was his favourite actor ever. I think he wrote quite a long kind of passage about him in his memoir. But he said of the film, many films of the mid-50s, even the good ones, seem somewhat outdated now. But by setting his story in an invented movie world outside conventional realism, Morton gave it a timelessness. It's one of the most frightening movies, one with the most unforgettable of villains, and on both of these scores, it holds up very well after 4 decades. So he was writing that in the the early 2000s. But it is like a heightened reality, isn't it? And kind of, I mean, that's kind of what you get to get your head around, I suppose. And I think we talked about this before, like realism versus kind of anything other, really. I think as long as your film's like consistent, your reality can be whatever the film's reality can be, whatever the director makes it. But it's kind of heightened reality. It was visuals and like the big, the biblical kind of themes, and like the the big I don't know, kind of over the top kind of battle of good versus evil, I suppose. Kind of it does kind of work. It does. It is powerful in its way.
Is it really a battle when evil brings knife to the shotgun fight?
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's the ultimate lesson overall.
Is Lawton saying her penis is bigger than his?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe that is the lesson. Yeah, if evil really wants to stand hope in hell, he's not going to bring a knife to a gunfight. Yeah.
Oh, and then we didn't talk about Uncle Bertie, because I don't know what Uncle Bertie is supposed to sort of represent, but he is just like this nice old guy who is very unreliable and is unable to swoop in and save the children. I don't know if he's maybe a metaphor for like the American government of that era. Who knows? Who has any idea? But he's drunk and incompetent and passes out when they need him the most.
Yeah, and because of the era, because he's just a kindly, harmless old man. No one thinks, spares a second thought for, a 10-year-old spending all of his time with him, all of his spare time with him. There's nothing kind of untoward about that. I mean, this guy apparently he came in late in the game. The original actor had shot all of his scenes, but for one reason or another, Lawson wasn't happy with it, so he decided to recast and just reshoot the scenes, and so he's happy.
Also, side note, John's real life brother, Michael Chapin, he plays the boyfriend or whatever of Ruby wearing like the bow tie.
Oh yeah.
Now another random character who I see is credited on Wikipedia but was uncredited in the film. Paul Breyer plays the Hangman. And the scene I remember for the Hangman is he goes home and he talks to his wife. He's like, "It's so hard hanging people, it's real." And she goes, "Well, you technically aren't the one doing it." Like, it's such a funny scene. I don't remember what the point is.
Yeah, and I thought that was going to come back in some regard, but it wasn't. It was just, I thought he was going to appear like later on, say, basically say, "Oh, well, I hung you down, but I should have hung this one instead," or just something on those lines. Yeah, I thought there'd be some kind of a payoff there, but not really. I mean, even Powell at the end, we don't see him really. We know where he's heading, but he's essentially, he's captured, and the mob are going to get him, but he's swept away. He's by the authorities. They don't leave him for mob justice. He's going to go through the proper trial process.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the trial process is all. I said process. I don't say it like that. The trial process is interrupted whenever when John cannot testify against him. Which it's really cool that he cares about Omerta that much. He's really in this life. I think he's going to grow up to be a bank robber like his old dad.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting little wrinkle, isn't it? It's like they've got him, but he just can't bring himself to it because he gets these like PTSD flashbacks of his, of what his dad went through, and just making that association with, this other man on, in the dock, relying on him to save him, So they could have. I mean, again, maybe that's another thing for the time. Maybe audiences wanted everything to be tied up a little neatly. They didn't want to be, kind of have stuff questions unanswered and made to feel like a little bit uncomfortable, about where everyone finds himself at the end of this. Maybe they weren't ready. They weren't. Audiences weren't mature enough to, juggle all that.
Or too stupid. Like, it's one of those two. I'm convinced people might have been just less art literate, like during the production code era, and today as well. It's like a rate thing, There's more of us that are good at it, but
it's almost like starving people of like moral ambiguity in general, or kind of anything explicitly, stuff that you shouldn't be imitating. If kind of if you ban that stuff for long enough, then people forget kind of how they respond to it and how they're meant to read it. And again, that classic thing, kind of depiction isn't the same as endorsement, but comes to production code, it was. You depict in this, you must mean that you want the whole of America to just indulge in these behaviors.
Yeah, don't show the reality of the situation. You continue the facade in your silly fantasy thriller movie. I mean, obviously we talked about not Rupert, Ebert. I'm combining Roper and Ebert together. He loved the movie. People, kind of recognize its greatness now, but it is funny to think of like there being a cult film in the 60s and 70s where people are going, "Oh man, this underappreciated film. I watched it on TV. It's amazing." Like that's such an interesting way to think about cult media when nowadays it's more personalized. I saw it on Netflix. I bought the DVD. Or there's already a forum on the internet for people who like it.
Yeah, and the kind of thing for it to be a cult movie, and it's not really kind of like classic cult movies tend to be generalizing, tend to be like kind of, I don't know, less well regarded kind of genre fare, you know, lots of sci-fi and horror and things like that. You know, whereas this, yeah, obviously it's got the horror elements, but you know, it's essentially it's like it's quite a prestigious kind of film, you know, with like the stars and the talent involved and the artistry behind it, you know, and it's a period piece, it's a drama, it's about you know a particularly tumultuous time in kind of American history. You know, it's got all these things going for it. Just didn't engage with people, you know, at the time of its release.
Yeah, or people didn't engage with it one way or the other.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it looks like if you want to get this on physical media, Criterion's the way to go because it
mm,
has a 2.5 hour documentary made
yeah,
by UCLA from archive footage. So I'm probably going to be getting that because, you know, I had tried to watch this movie before, and I think I probably just got bored by the beginning of it,
mm,
where it.
yeah. I think I hadn't seen this. This is the second time I've seen it. Last time I saw this was probably at university, and you know, which was 12 years ago now. God,
Oh no,
and
Sam's getting old.
yeah, and yeah, I think I remember being impressed by it, kind of appreciating it, like just a purely stylistic level. You know, saying you know this looks great. You know, but I wasn't bowled over by it. But now revisiting it now, I can see kind of the depth to it, and just there's so many layers to it, and it's not like obviously yeah, it's very suspenseful and kind of you know tense and atmospheric and everything, but I quite like the kind of the vein of kind of, dark kind of humor running through it as well. You know, because he's a funny character in his way. He's terrifying. He's absolutely insane, but he's very powerful. Just some of his turns of phrases and the way he manipulates situations and how he manages to you know charm like ordinary people. You know, and kind of just wind them around his finger. It's entertaining to watch, and it is funny as
Yeah,
well.
he always has some story, just like Humbert
Yeah,
Humbert, about how he ended up
yeah,
in this situation and getting people to believe him and trust him and all that, which he
mm,
delivers excellently. Like it's very slimy,
yeah.
but I
I
mean
think
convincing.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to see if there's ever been like a stage adaptation of this, because I can see it kind of working quite well. I mean, obviously, you'd have to be creative with, again with your visuals. I mean, there's different ways of being visually striking on stage, obviously, but you can see that with a fairly small cast of characters and like some good monologues and you good kind of back and forth in the dialogue scenes. I can see it working quite well, and I wonder if like Watson, you know, going back to his first love of theatre was ever tempted, you know, to although maybe this just how it was received at the time, maybe this was just too painful for him to revisit as a project in any regard.
Yeah, and for me, this is a movie like if you want to get into older, I mean, 50s before movies. This is one I think a modern audience could watch
Mm,
and get more
yeah.
out of it than they would out of the average 50s movie and before.
Mm. Yeah, I suppose you can kind of understand to extent people are put off by black and white movies that are just guys in suits in an office talking quickly at each other. You know, yeah, that's possibly an acquired taste for like a modern audience. You know, kind
Yeah.
of.
Or just like really lame, tame melodrama. You know, this
Yeah,
has
yeah,
melodrama, but it also
yeah.
has the thriller suspense aspects with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It's really exciting. It really draws you in, like yeah, straight off the bat. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I learned that the title for this in Sweden is a spoiler. It's called Ragdoll, uh, or whatever the
Yeah.
Swedish version of that is.
Mm.
Yeah.
Again, there's a slight kind of red herring there where they're playing with the doll outside, and or they're packing the money into the doll out in the yard at night, and Harry's coming out, you know, to you know to go to bed, and they lose a few of the doll bills, kind of flutter out and kind of under the porch, and I was convinced that was going to come back, that he'd notice them like later on, or you know he'd see kind of evidence, but no, it's just there
Al-
just to
Also, Pearl is cutting them into little paper dolls.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah. Pearl is fun for like a toddler or very young child actress. Like
Hmm.
I thought she
Yeah,
was
I
good.
mean, yeah, I mean, I think her performance, as we've kind of already mentioned, possibly made in the edit, but John is a really good young actor, I think, and it's kind of a shame he didn't kind of go on to do anything else after this. But I think
Yeah.
he's really kind of a real mature performance for his age.
I read that he got into drugs and alcohol in his 20s and
Uh,
30s, according to his sister. So it was a tragic post child actor career for him.
that's a shame.
But he lived a long life and died in 2016. So surely he died knowing people appreciated his work as a little kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Sam, do you have anything else on this movie?
Uh, I think we've kind of covered it, really. I mean, yeah, basically, yeah. If you haven't seen this movie, do so. It's well worth your time. Oh, and if you think like black and white movies are too slow and long, don't worry. This isn't even an hour 40. You know, it's a real thriller. It's just straight in, straight out. No time, not a moment wasted. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Except for the hangman talking to his wife.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. Well, I guess that's it for the Night of the Hunter. I'm sure at some point though we can do actors turned directors as a separate topic.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, maybe we'll pick a director that did more than one projects.
yes, yeah, we could do that as well. Um, all right. Well, that is it for this episode. But we'll be back next week with something else. Still Kieranless, unfortunately, but we will make do. Until then, Sam, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Film Magazine, where my Deadpool and Wolverine review is currently live. So have fun reading that. No spoilers or anything, but I'll say if you're not already on board, this isn't going to change your mind. But if you like the Deadpool
I
movies,
will disagree to the extent that I was not on board. I had very low expectations, and it
okay,
blew me out of the water. So
okay, yeah, yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah. All right. I think the people that like it the most will be the ones who are like the previous Deadpool movies because the sense of humor hasn't changed, and obviously there's lots of in jokes, you know, about the wider universe and stuff like that. So yeah, you know, it's a good time. You know, probably mid-table Marvel for me, but yeah, good time. I'll watch it again. It was fun.
As someone who prefers the comedy Marvel, this is top tier Marvel for me.
Yeah.
When Thor Ragnarok's your favorite one of them, this one's up there. Yeah, go read Sam's review, or eventually we're gonna have a video where you can listen to me read Sam's review. I will say, Sam, I'm sad that you didn't take the opportunity to call out that Josh Brolin is an old boy and is also Thanos when referencing the old boy hallway fight scene. So.
Oh damn it! That was an open goal. I missed that.
Yeah, it could have been meta. Yeah, so you can read my stuff also at the Film Magazine that has previously been written and already exists. Um, but I'm going to recommend an article here. This is from a guest named Jensen Davenport. And Jensen wrote an article. I'm about to butcher some French. Say ancora domani. Yeah, I can't even get the accent right. I can't say it. Neorealism and the right to vote. So go read about that, because obviously the UK already had elections. In the US, they are coming up. So that this is going to be something relevant to the times in which we live. I bet other countries have them too, Sam. I'm just ignorant of them. So I don't know about their
Yeah.
political processes. And then Kieran.
I think it's. I think it's. Say, Ancora Domini. Say Ancora Domini.
Sam,
Yeah, anyway, don't
Dominique.
know.
There you go. All right. Thank
Yeah.
you, Sam. You can find Kieran at K Judgmental, and I'm sure he wrote stuff, but I didn't click through to find any of it. So sorry, Kieran. You're out of luck on this one. He reviewed Twisters. Did he do the Twister retrospective review? Let's find out.
Yes,
He did.
but he did both Twister reviews. Yep. So check those out.
Yeah, Twisters, the Twisters. Go read those. So you can follow us at Second Cut Pod. Email is secondcutpod@gmail.com. I don't ever say that, but I probably should. And
You
that
can
is
buy
it.
T-shirts like this.
Yes, on our
Buy
Redbubble.
T-shirts like this.
Yep. That's on the Redbubble down in the description. You can also just give us money. We accept that on PayPal, also down in the description. Like, comment, subscribe if you got anything out of this. We'd appreciate that. It helps us know what you like and what you don't. And that is it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.